Welcome to the Qualoupe class, and this one we're going to look at duplicating records. You can see I've got the Method Manager screen open in front of me. The purpose of duplicating is just to save a bit of time and effort when you're creating multiple records that are very similar, and it crops up in various applications within Qualoupe. So in the Method Manager I've got a method here, a metals analysis method, and you can see we've got 7 parameters on it, and some of the parameters, this iron parameter for example, have got limits in. So if you were to say, well, I've got another method I want to create and it's virtually identical but the limits are different or something like that, you'd have to create it all from scratch, create each parameter, set up the parameter type and unit and that sort of thing. So a much easier way to do it would be to make a copy or clone of this method and just edit the things you need to make your duplicate. So the duplicate functionality is always hidden up here under the Qualoupe menu. You can see we have a duplicate option, so I'm going to click on that, and you can see it's made me a new duplicate of my metals analysis. The first thing it's done is it's given it a name which is a copy, but it puts some characters, random characters, just to make it unique, in a set of brackets. But of course I can edit this, so I'm going to call this one metals 2. Okay, I'll save my changes. So another thing to note is, because it's a copy, it's in the same test group as the first one, and this is not, you can't highlight that and edit it. I could click on this lookup and select another value. So if I wanted it to say metals 2, the same as my method name, I'd have to go to the lookup manager and add that value, and then I could select it into here, but for now I'm just going to leave it the same. So if I go to my iron parameter again, and we look at the limits, you can see they've copied across. Well, because this is a duplicate, it's status n, so I can double click on this limit, edit the value, save my changes. So quite quickly I've created a method with multiple parameters on it, with multiple limits, just made a couple of changes I need to make, and then we're good to go with this one. You can see that although I've changed the name, that's not updated in this view at the moment. If I was to reload the records, there we are, there's metals 2. I'll just highlight that as well. So that needs to be refreshed. Oh, I seem to have chosen a random selection of methods here, but anyway, that needs to be refreshed before it'll show the correct one, but never mind. And then of course you can approve that and treat it just like a method that you've created from scratch. So that's the Method Manager. Now if I go to the Material Manager, it's much the same thing. So here we have a material, and this material has got 2 specifications, and each of these specifications has got some methods on them. And here's metals analysis that I was playing with earlier, and you can see it's got all the parameters on it. So there's a couple of things I could do. So I've got, this is obviously environmental testing, and I've got an inlet water specification and an outlet one. So if I wanted to create a third specification in here, if I go up to here, you can see we've got an option to duplicate and an option just to duplicate the specification. So if I click on duplicate specification, it's duplicated the one that I had highlighted, which was inlet water, and it's done the same thing that happened when we were creating the method. It gives it the same name with some characters in brackets, so it's not an identical name. So we'll call this one process flow, and in exactly the same way as we could edit the limits and parameters on a duplicated method, I could go into here, I can click on, here's our old friend iron again, and we have limits. I could change the limits in there. Obviously I could because it's status N, I can always add another test to this. You know, if there's an additional method required for this particular specification. I've done this demonstration as different places in environmental testing, but you know, this could be a product, and you could have customer specifications for your product which are fundamentally the same, but perhaps one customer requires additional testing, or perhaps the limits are different for different markets. So you create your corporate specification and then duplicate to create all your customer ones. And so in which case, if it was if it was a customer one, you could add a business unit, i.e. a customer, linked to that by standard functionality, clicking on here, but I'm not going to do that for now. So I'm going to approve that one. So here's our environmental material with 3 specifications on it. If I go to duplicate, you can see the specification is greyed out. If I highlight a specification, it isn't. But I'm going to click on this one, duplicate, and it should make me a copy of the entire material. I'm going to have to go back to load records and find it. There it is. So it's put the characters on the end, so I might give this one a new name. I don't know, I'll call it water testing. Save changes. Now, in fact, if I load water testing and environmental, you can see environmental, these specifications are all approved. If I go along to water testing, it's duplicated the material and the specifications, but the new specifications are all status N, and that's obviously because it's a new material and these are effectively new specifications. You might want to make edits to them. So if you didn't, you could just approve them. If you did want to change them, so if I find my process flow one, find that additional test, I can delete that test. There we are. So you can make your changes as required and obviously edit the names, add descriptions, change the customers, all that sort of thing. Okay, so that's a quick overview of the duplicate functionality and why you might want to use it. Basically, save keystrokes, save user time and effort, and save typos, of course, because if it's fundamentally the same, to save you looking it all up again and making sure you've included all the limits you need, if you copy an existing specification, it's already there. So if I go to the home screen and click on Sample Manager, the duplicate functionality appears in various applications throughout the system, and I don't need to demonstrate it everywhere. You've got it in Instrument to duplicate instrument records. You've got it in Invoice if you wanted to raise an invoice that was a duplicate of another one. You can duplicate batches. If I load up some samples, oh, they've got duplicate written on them already. If I choose one of these samples, you could have put in batch, customer reference. You could have spent a bit of time filling all of this in. So we've also got an option in here to make a duplicate of a sample. If I duplicate the sample, it doesn't give it a new name with brackets because obviously we've already got a unique naming / numbering convention for your sample, which is the sample ID, so it's just allocated it the next available sample ID. So I think I've probably shown you enough about this. As I said, it's in all the applications where the duplicate functionality exists. It's from the Qualoupe menu in the top left-hand corner, duplicate. And there is an option in most of the applications to do this. If it's not available, you'll still see duplicate, but it'll be grayed out. Okay, well, I hope this was helpful to everybody. I hope you enjoyed watching it. Thank you very much.